Hey everyone, John Wiertzema here, and we are going to talk today about the Great Harlot. And this is more out of necessity than anything, because I was not going to do this video just yet, but I keep seeing other people, teaching on YouTube and other places, and they've got the wrong idea of this, who the Great Harlot is. So I need to get out there on record, okay, and talk about this now. Try and get out ahead of it before people get too wrapped up and confused on something that's not true. Okay, a lot of people are talking about this great harlot as being this globalist system, the globalists that are right now trying to form a one world government, and I think that's incorrect. I do not believe that the globalists represent or have really anything to do with the great harlot, other than they might have some correlation with the great harlot because of their activities with Satan. But the great harlot represents something else, not the globalists, not America, not the city of New York, and all this stuff that I keep hearing out there. That is a misunderstanding. That's not it. Let me show you why. In the book of Revelation, there are two women that are personified. First, we have in Revelation 12, the sun-clothed woman. Okay, the sun-clothed woman of Revelation 12. In verse 1, it says, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun," right? The sun-clothed woman, "and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child." Okay, now we have a pregnant, sun-clothed woman. "And she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth." Okay, a pregnant woman who's at the time of about to give birth. And then a little bit later on, she gives birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all nations with the rod of iron. So we have, and I'm going to get to, I don't know if I'm going to get to in this video who the male child is, but I've talked about that before. But I need to do a specific video on who the male child is. But this sun-clothed woman, okay, we have to identify. That's number one. There's two women that are personified in the book of Revelation, the sun-clothed woman and the great harlot, the other one. And these two women are completely opposite from one another, right? Here he says, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters." And this is Revelation chapter 17. "With whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those that dwell on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality." Now remember, the book of Revelation talks in figurative language, right? So these two women are not literal women. They are representations of something, right? But they're completely opposites. We have the sun-clothed woman who's about to give birth to a child. She's pregnant. And then you have the great harlot, who represents everything that Satan has ever done to blind the minds of them that believe not the gospel. Okay, the entire system, every false religion or everything that isn't a religion, whether it being an atheism or whatever, everything that Satan has done that has tried to stop people from believing in the one true God, that is who the great harlot represents. And here's why I say that. Because of we need to look at who the sun-clothed woman is, right? In Genesis chapter 3, there is a prophecy that God gave to the serpent in the garden. And he said, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And it shall bruise your head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." Okay, here's the woman, and you have the woman and the seed, and then you have Satan and his seed. Okay, this woman and her seed, this is a woman who is going to give birth. When you go over to Revelation chapter 12, you've got the sun-clothed woman who's about to give birth to the child. This is the fulfillment. Revelation 12 is the fulfillment of Genesis 3, verse 15. Okay? And the woman that God was talking about in Genesis 3 was not the Mary giving birth to Jesus. Okay? It was not just women in general. Okay? He was talking about, it was a figurative personification of all of the believers, all of those of the household of faith for all time. And so when we get over here to Revelation chapter 12, we see this sun-clothed woman. And a lot of times people, even this heading here, it says the woman Israel. And we see, some symbolism here with the sun-clothed woman, the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And so, the 12 stars, the 12 tribes of Israel, there's some symbolatry here. But this is not talking about natural Israel. It is talking about Israel, but not natural Israel. The reason is because when we get over in the book of Romans, Paul starts to identify the fact that not all who are of Israel are Israel. Okay? Not all of the Jews, just because they were children of Abraham, they weren't true Israel. Only believers are true Israel. Okay? So there's a lot of Jewish people in history and even today. Just because they're sons of Abraham doesn't mean a thing. It matters whether or not you're, circumcised in your heart, right? Not circumcised in the flesh, circumcised in your heart. Whether you truly believe. So this woman here, the sun-clothed woman, represents true Israel, which is all believers of all time. And then her child, okay? She's pregnant with child. And we know that the Bible says that the whole earth groans and travails waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. The travail that the woman, the sun-clothed woman, is having, this travail she's having, she's about to give birth. She's about to give birth to the male child. And when we see this, it says, she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And a lot of people say, well, that's Jesus. Well, it is Jesus, but not only Jesus. It's Jesus and all believers, everyone who overcomes. That's what it says in the book of Revelation, that all who overcome will rule with a rod of iron. All overcomers will rule with a rod of iron. She's giving birth, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. This being caught up, this is the rapture. And the birth that's taking place is the resurrection. Remember, Jesus was the firstborn from the dead. His resurrection was likened unto a birth. And our resurrection of being caught up to God is likened unto a birth. Right here in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, the male child is born. This is all believers of all time being born into the newness of life, being born in the resurrection, right? And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. That's who the sun-clothed woman represents, all believers of all time. And even after this catching away, the woman stays on the earth, because it says the dragon goes to persecute the woman who gave birth to the man-child. Why is she still on the earth? Because even after that resurrection, during the last 3.5 years, there will still be believers on the earth. The woman will still be here because she represents all believers of all time. Now, when we go to the opposite of that and we look at this harlot, the harlot represents all unbelievers of all time. This is the seed of Satan that will have enmity. Remember what it said in Genesis chapter 3:15. I will put enmity between you, the serpent, and the woman. Okay, you and believers. And between your seed, the unbelievers, the wicked of the earth, and the righteous of the earth. And it shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Okay, so this is what it's talking about. Okay, And you got to ask the question in Revelation 17, a little bit later on, it says that the 10 horns and the beast hate the harlot and put her to death and burn her with fire. Okay, why is that? What happens that would cause that to happen? And here is the great, great mystery that everybody needs to understand. When the Lord appears in the middle of the last 7 years, every single person will see him. Every single person. And there is absolute no doubt in my mind that the sixth seal of Revelation chapter 6, the sixth seal, is opened in the very center, in the very middle of the last 7 years. And I know a lot of people say, no, that happens at the end. But it doesn't happen at the end. It happens in the middle, right in the middle. And the stars that fall from the sky, okay, the heaven departs as a scroll, the stars fall from the sky. Those stars represent Satan and his angels falling to the earth because they're being removed from being the God of this world, like it says in Revelation chapter 12. Right at the time when Satan and his angels are cast down by Michael, right? And at the beginning of Revelation 12, it says, I saw the dragon, and he had a third part of the stars, and he cast them down to the earth. Okay? That happens in the middle of the last 7 years. And those stars being cast down to the earth happens in the middle of the last 7 years. And under the sixth seal, when the sixth seal is opened, it says, I saw the stars of heaven fall to the earth. That is the same thing as what's happening in Revelation 12, the war in heaven. And so we know that the sixth seal will happen in the middle of the last 7 years because of that. And I'm going to do a video specifically explaining the sixth seal and why the timing of it happens in the middle of the last 7 years. This is one of the big reasons for believing in a midweek rapture. Okay, but under the sixth seal, something else happens, something big happens, and it is the appearing of the Lord. The entire population of the earth, it's 7 categories of people it mentions, and it says every one of them says, hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the time of their wrath has come, and who shall be able to stand? Right then and there, the time of the wrath of the Lamb is going to start being poured out with the 7 bowls of bowls of wrath, the 7 bowls during the last 3.5 years. Throughout the last 3.5 years, it's time of the wrath of God to be poured out on the earth. Okay, so the sixth seal happens in the middle of the last 7 years, and because everybody sees Jesus and God the Father sitting on the throne, they all see him. You can go read it and look at the reaction. They all see him. What happens to every single person who's a Muslim in the middle of the last 7 years when they see Jesus and the church, the believers are raptured up out of here, and they all see him? Right then and there, they see him, and they're Muslim. What do you think that does to their faith in Allah? What do you think it does to people's faith in Buddha and all these? Every false religion will fall. You know what it says in Revelation 17 here in verse 1? It says, come here, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot. You know how the judgment happens? Jesus appears. And when he appears, every single religion on the face of, false religion on the face of the earth falls, because everybody will know the truth about Jesus. Every single person. They all will. And then you got to ask the question about, how is it that the Antichrist is going to come on the scene, halfway through the last 7 years and cause everybody to worship the beast? I mean, give me a break, right? You're saying that everything's going to be the same and people are going to be having their religion. They're going to be believing in Allah, and somebody's going to come along and try and persuade them to worship something else? No. The reason that he's able to do that, the reason that the Antichrist can cause everybody to worship the beast, is because every single religion has fallen. Everybody knows the truth about Jesus, and they know that their false gods are not real. That's the judgment of the great harlot. How does God judge the great harlot? By appearing. just by appearing in the sky at the time of the rapture, and everybody sees him. Revelation 1:7, behold, he comes with clouds, and every eye will see him, even those that pierced him. And the whole world will wail because of him. That's what happens. The great harlot isn't the globalists. The great harlot isn't America. The great harlot isn't the city of New York. The great harlot is just false religion, false gods, the system that Satan has set up from the beginning of time to get people to be blinded from the truth of the gospel.